So I'm going to go ahead and start putting control rods together. I'm not going to demonstrate that process in detail. I may show how to do one of them, but if you've seen one, you've seen 1,000. And basically you take these long grub screws and you screw them into the plastic eyelets, and then you screw them into the aluminum rods and assemble the suspension. Also, I'm going to be using some aftermarket items to do the 4-link. So I need to do a little test fitting and make sure everything fits right. Since I am doing the 4-link, the hardware, or I should say the plastic parts, are included to do 3 or 4-link, and they provide the extra plastic control arms. I'm not sure that they provide all the hardware. I have not seen a pair of screws long enough to pass through this piece right here so far. This is my only complaint, if it is even a complaint, just a minor thing to be knowledgeable of when you put this together. They say it's a builder's kit. I believe what they're trying to say is that there are a lot of options. For example, the different size drive shafts that you have, the fact that you can do a 3-link, or you can do something a little more complex and do the 4-link. And there were other parts on this kit that you have various choices as how you want to build things, and they don't show how to assemble every single option. And that's fine. It's not really a problem. I think it's just a matter of making sure that you stay organized as you go through the instructions. You know, make sure you've got the right size screw for what you need. If it's not there, go into a different bag. It does look like there's a bunch of extra screws. I went through and found another bag that has a whole bunch of these little screws, and these look just like the screws that you use to put the diffs together. So they may have even provided a bunch of additional hardware for the various pieces that tend to get worn out or break or get lost. I think when they say builder's kit, they mean you get to have fun with it, you get to build it your way, and we give you a lot of different parts and a lot of different ways of doing it. This is a standard build, and from there, it's on you to figure out how you want to do it, how you want to set it up. And if that is the case, I think that's fantastic. I really do. Because I am trying to go a little bit on the scale side, I'm going to probably set these up so the logos face inward or downward, so that when I'm filming it or taking photos of it, the logos and the measurements on them don't show. It looks like down is probably the best way to go. That way you're not going to see them from either side. Here's another quick tip. When you're installing these grub screws, I'm working through all these rods here. Easy way to deal with these instead of having to hold them with your finger is just take a small screwdriver, or you could use one of the long bolts. That'll work, and you just hold it with your fingers, and that makes it a lot easier when you're tightening these things in. And another thing is that you can tighten these in a little too far. You want to get as much of the grub screw into this plastic. It's not very long, so you want to get it all the way in. If you start feeling, whether you're using the metal ones or the plastic ones, it's going to be the same thing. If it starts pushing against the edge there, it's going to start closing in the space for the ball socket there, and it's going to get a little bit tight, and you'll feel it. And if it starts getting a little tight, just back it off a quarter turn or so, and it'll loosen right back up. But again, you want to get as much of that grub screw in there as possible. At least halfway would probably be good. About like so. It's about how far I'm driving them in. And because that's more than enough to screw it securely into the aluminum. But the plastic is the weakest part there. Okay, it may not look like much has happened, but this has been apart and back together several times. I have decided to go with the 3-link front end, at least until I've had a chance to get a Panhard kit and move the servo up into the frame. Also, one of the things about having the servo on top of the axle, if you are using the 4-link front end, the servo plate is only being held on by these 2 posts. And I'm using a very high torque servo, and a lot of people are driving these trucks over very rough terrain. There's a lot of stresses on the wheels, and a lot of pushback and pushback from the servo, and I would think that this would be now the single weakest point of possible failure on a front end. The 3-link has this little bracket instead of this bracket, and when mounted in, that provides this third hole. So that makes for a much sturdier servo mount. So until I've got a Panhard set up, if you don't know what a Panhard is, I believe I described it earlier. I'm going to be spraying this with several coats of Plastidip spray. I guess this has been out for a while. It's not a new product. A lot of people like using the dip, and I do like using the dip for certain things. For example, I dipped my shock tool because that certainly made it a lot more comfortable. That aluminum handle was pretty rough on the hands after a little while. I will be using the dip black Plastidip for the receiver and for the electronic speed control. Possibly might use this on the ESC. It depends on how thick a coat I'm going to need. But for the servo, I'm just taping over the spline drive. I'm going to hang this by its wire, and I'm going to spray the wire and cover the whole thing in a couple of coats of spray, because all I really have to do is seal any seams around the holes at the wire, and this will create a little bit of a gasket at the edge, and I'll also put an O-ring in between the horn and the servo itself just to give a little more moisture resistance. I'm not going to show you the spray process. You get the idea. You hang it, you spray it, you let it dry, you put on another coat, you do it until you're happy with it. That's all there is to it.